see here, please.
Yep. Always entertaining. So, this week in the Nothing to See Here, from bounding into comics, former Harvey Weinstein ally Olivia Wilde says, "Don't worry, darling, villain is based on insane pseudo-intellectual hero to the incel community, Jordan Peterson."
Gosh.
According to Olivia Wilde, the antagonist of her upcoming film, Don't Worry, Darling, is based on scholar Jordan Peterson, who she considers to be little more than an insane pseudo-intellectual. Sure. Wilde offers her thoughts on the Peterson during a recent interview given to Maggie Gyllenhaal on behalf of Interview magazine. Therein, while speaking to the conception of the film's antagonist, Frank, portrayed on screen by Chris Pine, Wilde admitted that she and her production team based that character on this insane man, Jordan Peterson, who is a pseudo-intellectual hero to the incel community. This video, I love how they use this video for like Jordan Peterson YouTube. Do you remember what this video is called, Denny?
I don't remember what it was called.
Up yours, woke moralists.
That's the one. That was
like,
I love that video.
It's so good. So, quote, "They're basically disenfranchised, mostly white men who believe they are entitled to sex from women," explained Wilde, "and they believe that society has now robbed them, that the idea of feminism is working against nature, but must be put back into the correct place." Following a scoff of, "Well, they must be psyched. Things are going really well for them." For Gyllenhaal, the Spider-Woman director, added, "Yeah, they're actually succeeding in many different ways, but this guy Jordan Peterson is someone that legitimizes certain aspects of their movement because he's a former professor, and he's an author who wears a suit, so they feel like this is a real philosophy that should be taken seriously. Oh no." Peterson has been a thorn on the side of progressives for years due to his aforementioned popularity, which he earned thanks to his rejection and subsequent dissection of the twin ideals of intersectional feminism and neoliberal gender ideology. In fact, the man has become so hated that Marvel Comics and Ta-Nehisi Coates saw fit to turn the classic Nazi villain, the Red Skull, into a Peterson analog during the writer's recent Captain America run, which was, of course, hilarious.
It was just so dumb.
10 rules for life, chaos and order, the feminist trap. Yeah, all of these things. Peterson responded to the director's accusations by issuing a statement where he both downplayed her claims that he is an incel hero and noted that he considered Pine's casting as the character to be a compliment. "He has the reputation of quite an attractive man." So that could be worse. "I also hope that Chris Pine, at least on the sartorial splendor of my very poor public wardrobe justice, as he pillarizes me in the latest bit of propaganda disseminated by the woke, self-righteous bores and bullies who now dominate Hollywood, and who insist on the production of such tripe." I cannot do a Jordan Peterson voice. His voice is so hard.
It's a very difficult one to pull off. However, the thing is, like, people, the people who are trying to basically, they're trying to get cheap shots on Jordan Peterson are they have to rely on strawmen. This is the saddest thing. People call him a pseudo-intellectual, yet he is one of the most quoted and referenced, intellectual.
He is he's the most sourced professor at the University of Toronto.
By far.
He's amongst
One of the
top 1% sourced. He's easily amongst the top in terms of psychology. And in terms of, I think he's in the top 3 or 4% in all subjects.
Yeah.
So, calling him this pseudo-intellectual is just, it reveals how absolutely inept you are in actually understanding who the man is you're trying to critique.
It's also then, so they try to claim he's not an intellectual. Why? Because he's an intellectual, which gives him some kind of reputation of that he's a valid cultural speaker, and a really good one, because he's a very prominent intellectual. But they have to pretend like he isn't, because they can't engage with his stuff. They try to do that guilt by association garbage, try to say oh, he's an incel hero. Actually, no, he's incredibly. He actually speaks out very strongly against incels, because incels are toxic people who believe that they're entitled to things, and he's like, that's not at all what if you know anything.
Also,
about Jordan Peterson,
I've never actually met or interacted with someone who is claiming to be a member of this incel group.
Yeah,
because everyone that I've talked to who has not been with another person is either doing it because they're choosing not to, because it's something that they've chosen to do between themselves and God, or themselves and their spouse. Nobody that I know is celibate because they don't want to be. Like, I understand that some of these people do exist, but I don't know. I've never even heard of someone who actually says, like, oh, women, like, I'm entitled to sex from women. I've never heard of this individual. These
people do exist.
They
But
do
here's the problem.
exist, but they're so rare.
No, and that's the point. The point is, this is what the left does. This is what they always do. They find some group that's stigmatized in society, and they try to make some kind of a connection between you and that stigmatized group. They did this with the vaccinations, like anti-vaxxers. Okay, there is an actual, like, a group, a smaller a group of people that will not take any vaccination whatsoever and believe all sorts of, like, the very, very out there theories about vaccinations and what they can do. But they're a small segment. They try to take that group and they try to apply that to everyone who refused to get a vaccine during COVID. That's what they do. They basically try to, like, say, like, oh, you're one of them. You're one of them. And so this is what they do with the incels. This is what they do with the far right extremism or fascists. Those do exist, but they try to, like, group you in with all of them. Same thing with the conspiracy theorist kind of label. These are labels that they take. They basically try to, like, say you're the boogeyman, and they try to, like, lump you together with these very rare and not very common people that, like, they try to, like, basically try to, like, throw it at you, see if it sticks. And Jordan Peterson, if you're an actually intellectual person, it doesn't stick. It can't stick because he not only does he not only is the idea of it being an incel completely antithetical to everything that Jordan Peter teaches. Jordan Peterson teaches and says that he also has actually come out and said, like, that's not in any way what he wants for men. So
I think what was nonsense. There was actually an interesting. There was a claim that a statement that he stated about this. Many of the young men whom the progressive and cancel culture facilitating mad woke mob, which contains no shortage of bitter, self-righteous victimhood brandishing, virtue signaling, accusatory, and even outright demented mean girl feminists, have shamed and tortured for ever daring to manifest a single masculine attribute, have turned to my work and found some solace therein. He said, according to the outlet. Where was it that he said? Because he mentioned, it's like, if all the women are denying you, then the problem is not with them, it's with you. So it's like trying to claim that he's this hero and of the incel community is absolutely nonsense.
He's none. It's like saying it's like what they said about Donald Trump. They said, like, he's the hero of white supremacists. It's like, no, like, do I even have to say it? He clearly is not a white supremacist, nor does he, like, support or endorse anything to do with white supremacists. It's a cheap trick used by the left, and these are not, like,
to try and delude and deceive people.
That's right, and that's the sad thing is, like, people who are actually intellectually honest and smart can see right through it. Any conservative worth his salt will be like, yeah, this is stupid. But who's this kind of, like, approach and this kind of thing? Who's the audience for this kind of thing? It's their, like, it's their what do you call it? Their cult, following, the leftists that actually believe this stuff. Because let's face it, like we talked about Jennifer Lawrence on Tuesday, Jennifer Lawrence has totally bought into the cult. She truly believes that the people who support Donald Trump literally hate women, that they're misogynistic, that they're racist, and that they're like the worst of the worst. They're preaching to their choir. The people who believe this are people who are either hardcore rabid leftists who want this to be true so bad that they will believe any lie you spoon feed them. Or people who are incredibly naive and who've never really thought things. And unfortunately, they're in very large demand on the left. And it's not an insult, like it's just an observation. Like you actually meet and encounter people on the left who are so completely brainwashed that you're just
Mm-hmm.
like, what? You're not even speaking clearly. You like,
Yep.
can you not see the absurdity of what you're saying?
Yep.
And I mean, a great example of that is that Tim Pool had a left wing kind of guy on his show, and he was actually like talking about abortion, and he was like, "Can you not see the absurdity of the position you're taking?" It's
Yeah.
like, well, it's a woman's choice. It's a woman's choice. That
No.
was that's all he could do. That's all.
Yeah.
And he was
That's all he
so
had, and he kept going back to it over and over and over again.
yeah. But as I'm listening to that episode, which I encourage you to listen if you ever have a chance, I'm listening to it. I'm like, he can't see it.
No.
He can't see how absurd his position is because he's so completely blinded by it.
Brainwashed and blinded. Yep.
It's like the ideology has to take precedence over what is your own common sense.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what happens to people in the cult. They have to disbelieve what it's like obvious to them because the talking points overrule and trump anything that you may think.
Yep. So
It's
this is
crazy.
actually a quick clip from Michaela Peterson on Instagram.
Oh, cool.
So this is something that she featured in response to Olivia Wilde's insanity.
Don't Worry, Darling has been based off of my dad because apparently he's king of the incels. Chris Pine's Don't Worry, Darling character inspired by incel hero Jordan Peterson. Frank was partly based on this insane man, Jordan Peterson, who is this pseudo-intellectual hero to the incel community. My dad is not pro-incel.
So you're a young man, and
There it
all
is.
the women are rejecting you. Who's got the problem? It's not all the women. That's
Right.
a bad road to go down. If all the women are rejecting you,
Oh my gosh,
it's you.
it's dad. Hello?
Hello, Red Girl.
Can I FaceTime you for a second?
I
I've got
love how,
hilarious
like,
news.
during
almost
this
as good as Red
conversation, he
Skull.
actually gets like
You have
FaceTimes.
been written in as the villain to Olivia Wilde's new movie. Chris Pine's Don't Worry, Darling character inspired by incel hero Jordan Peterson.
Wow. I assigned psychologist in the department that is surrounded by a large market.
So pseudo-intellectual isn't how you would be described.
So pseudo-intellectual is not how you would be described.
No.
I remember
no.
watching
He
that
is-
like
he is
a
legit
couple hours after that
intellectual.
information came out, and I was like, "This is hilarious." But yeah, all
That's
of this, the reason we put this in the Nothing to See Here column is because Olivia Wilde did this to try and distract from the fact that her previous movie was a complete flop. I forget what it was called, but it was a complete flop. Try and distract from the fact that the main actress, or one of the protagonist actresses, who is, what's her name? She's also the new Black Widow character, Florence Pugh.
I'll look it up. Okay.
Florence Pugh. She was angry at Olivia Wilde because Olivia Wilde was open about her cheating on her fiancé and leaving her children for Harry Styles, who is quite a bit younger than she is. And Florence Pugh was very openly mad about this. And of course, she lied about Shia LaBeouf quitting because she said it was something about, I think Olivia Wilde stated it was something about having a disagreement in values.
Yeah, something like that. And the trailer
Whereas,
was
like
oh,
a lot of the texts, like Shia LaBeouf shared the text that he had between himself and Olivia Wilde and showed that it was not about that it was about the fact that she was abusive and disrespectful to everybody on set and wouldn't let anybody have time to rehearse before shooting, which is nonsense if you're an actor. You have to have time to rehearse. Because you can't just instantly make every scene perfect. So she's trying to switch. She's trying to project her issues onto other people. And that is why this week, trying to blame Jordan Peterson as being an incel hero is the Nothing to See Here, because Olivia Wilde is just a gong show of awful.
Well, she really truly is a really terrible person. So if you're going to compare her and Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is as respectable a person as they come, and Olivia Wilde is not. So you better not put yourself up against him.
No,
Malay.
I don't even compare myself. Like Jordan Peterson, like yes, he's dabbling with issues of faith, and I truly hope that he realizes that there is something to be said for Christianity. I think he realizes there is something to be said from Christianity, but he's still like struggling with actually making a commitment, because making a commitment is very serious. And he said publicly, it's just like, this is a really serious thing if I'm going to commit to this. So I think he's on the right path. He's just not quite there yet.
By the way, the movie that she made recently, her previous, called Wake Up.
Called Wake Up?
Wake Up. It's a short film.
Never heard of it.
I know.
I guess that's why. Because it flopped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Didn't make it very well.
Did not make it very well. But now that we're moving on, we are going to talk about the news that you may have missed to discuss.